What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I just did a roster moves video because the Dolphins unfortunately had to put some more players on the COVID list. So make sure you check that out to get the updates on that. I just made that video. This video is going to be my under the scope video for the 2017 draft class. We'll take a little bit of a deeper dive. Before I do though, here in a little under 2 hours, I'm going to be doing a show with the Saints content creator Hoodie Jube, so make sure you check that out. I'm going to be going over onto his channel to do that. So like I said, make sure you check that out. I'll be putting the link to his channel in the description box. And with that, let me go ahead and jump right into this. So go ahead and minimize myself here, and we're going to start taking a look. So obviously the 2017 draft class is Charles Harris, Rayquan McClain, Cordrea Tankersley, Isaac Asayada, Devon Godshaw, Vincent Taylor, and Isaiah Ford. Real quick, I'm actually going to let me just jump over to my grades, and I actually did change these up a little bit because and I'll tell you where, but here's the grades that I gave them. Obviously the first grade is, you know, the impact that they had on the Dolphins, and then the second grade is either, you know, if they're still with the Dolphins, like Isaiah Ford for example, then it's, you know, probably going to be the same thing or close to it. But this is after the Dolphins, and, you know, taking into account anything they had done on their next team, etc., etc. So Charles Harris, for example, I actually had a C for here, but he's actually starting to really do good for the Lions, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's actually their leading pass rusher right now. So it looks like, and it's not like the Lions are a very good team and have a ton of, you know, defensive pieces around him that are really helping him to elevate. So it looks like he might just finally be getting the development and stuff that we were hoping we were going to get out of him, because he's doing really well. We'll get into his statistics here in a minute, but just wanted to let you know I changed that and upgraded it from a C to a B. And Isaiah Ford, I upgraded him from a C to a B as well. It didn't change the totals at the end of the day, but because he was a 7th round guy, he's still stuck around and he still is managing to contribute. So, you know, I did want to make some slight adjustments there because I do try and be as fair as possible. All right, now let's go ahead and jump back over to this, because we are going to start taking a deeper dive and actually look at these players. So Charles Harris, as you can see, he is a defensive end. He now plays for the Detroit Lions, and he has this entire season. So these are his 2021 games. Obviously, still got a few more. But let's go ahead and look at his year by year and his yearly totals and stuff. So obviously the first 3 years of his career he spent with us in Miami, then 1 year in Atlanta, and now he's with Detroit. And so in total he's had 68 games across all of that. For Miami, he played 41 games. He had 8 games started, 2 passes defensed, and a fumble recovery with 3.5 sacks, 34 solo tackles, 27 assisted, and, you know, not particularly great, especially, of course, that's over a 3-year span. So 3.5 sacks, that's the primary thing that we're looking for from him. Obviously, turnovers didn't really create a lot. Tackles for loss, he did have 10 in that span. Quarterback hits, 23. So not great, right? Obviously, Dolphins fans don't really like his production, and you can understand why. Over the first 3 years he certainly wasn't very good, and that's why for the Dolphins I gave him an F for the time that he was with the Dolphins. So we didn't get very much, but then he goes to Atlanta. He plays 13 games, 1 started. He had 2 passes defense, the same amount in 1 year. He had the same amount of passes defense that he had for 3 years with the Dolphins. Okay, he didn't have any fumble recoveries, but he did have 3 sacks in that 1 year as opposed to the 3.5 that he had with the Dolphins, etc., etc., right? So started to pick it up a little bit, but wasn't, you know, really great. But now his 1 year with the Lions, he has been in 14 games, started 11. He's had 2 forced fumbles and 7.5 sacks. So he's really starting to come on, and, you know, I actually personally like the direction that Dan Campbell is taking the Lions. I think they're going to be fine under his command. But it looks like Charles Harris is finally starting to come on. So I did thought it was, you know, I did think he should be upgraded a little bit in the grade that I gave him for after the fact. I mean, no matter what, when it comes to the Dolphins, we didn't get shit out of him, right? And he was a first-round pick for us. Now, to be fair, though, he is still a first-round pick, and he still has to do more to, you know, really live up to that. He's got to show that he can do it consistently. And so he's definitely not going to get an A grade until he can do that for, you know, the overall player that he's become. But for now, and the major jump that he is taking in this year, I think is warranting, you know, an upgrade from a C to a B. But of course, again, for the Dolphins, it's an F because we didn't get anything for him. So, Rayquan McClain. Just real quick, I'm not sure if he's with any team right now. Let's see transactions. So it looks like he's actually on New England's injured reserve, because August 7th, 2021, New England Patriots place him on injured reserve. So I think that's probably where he still is, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's the case. But now let's take a look at his numbers. So, defense and fumbles. Okay, so obviously he's had 3 years in the league. 2 with Miami, 1 with the Raiders, obviously nothing with the Patriots. So 3 years worth of stats, because they put him on IR in August it was. So obviously that was before the season started, and it must have been, I actually am not sure what the injury was, but it must have been bad enough to be they you know, figured he was going to have to spend a significant time out, because if they put players on injured reserve prior to the 53-man roster getting sorted out, then they had to be on the list for the entire year. So obviously he hasn't done anything for the Patriots this year. For Miami, in his 2 years, 29 games, 28 started, 2 passes defense, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery. You know, a good amount of tackles and stuff. He had 8 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits. Okay, I actually thought he was pretty solid for us. What were the grades? I gave him a D for the time with the Dolphins and his time, you know, since the Dolphins. So I gave him a D in both regards. I thought he was all right, and I thought he had a lot of promise, and certainly he did well in the run game after coming back from the knee injury. But the reason why he was ultimately a D is because he was a second-round pick. We actually didn't get a ton of production out of him. He did have that injury early on, the ACL injury that cut into his playing time, right? That obviously took a lot. And then when he came back, it sapped a good amount of, you know, his ability as a player. And so, you know, he then became pretty much just a limited role type kind of linebacker, because his ability to go sideline to sideline and stuff, and coverage ability and stuff, got sapped by that knee injury a lot. His athleticism, his speed. And so, you know, he was really only useful. And then, of course, obviously, we got rid of him. What was it? So Miami Dolphins placed him on injured reserve, and then we traded him to the Raiders for a 5th-round pick, a 2021 5th-round pick, and that was in August of 2020. So, yeah, so in exchange for picks, and then they got him as well. So obviously we ended up trading him in 2020, and that's pretty much how it ends for him. So not great. Obviously hasn't done anything since he left, so you're not going to get a grade from... You're not really going to get an improved grade anyway. I mean, you might even be able to argue that after having left the Dolphins, he really should be an F, because really the Dolphins got the most out of him, right? So there is an argument for that. Cordrea Tankersley, I'm pretty sure he's not even in the league anymore. Let's see. So Or I guess maybe he's I would have to see. I guess I'd have to pull up the Minnesota Vikings depth chart, but it looked like in January of 2021 they did sign him to a reserve futures contract. Obviously he's bounced around a little bit. Well, I guess, mostly just Dolphins and then Vikings, but practice squad with them, and I guess he's kind of been there ever since 2020. They signed him to a reserve futures contract in 2021, but he hasn't done anything, obviously, and so the last time he played was in 2020, and he really doesn't have much of anything. Obviously, Dolphins didn't. I have an F for his time with the Dolphins. I gave him a D for his time away. You could argue an F there too because he hasn't done anything. The only reason why I guess I gave him a D is because he is still in the league. He was a third round pick though, so there is a strong argument for both the last two, Rayquan also being a second round pick, that they're, after having left the Dolphins, they really deserve F grades because they really haven't done much of anything whatsoever. So I'm actually going to, as I do this, I am going to change that in my thing. I like to update things as we go along because Dolphins, what did they get from him? Nothing, right? And he didn't do anything in Minnesota, hasn't done anything in Minnesota, so say an F for Cordrea Tankersley. He had a lot of promise though early on. In his first season, he showed a lot of promise, but then he got injured, and then he was never the same ever since. So, all right, now we move to Isaac Asayada. He really didn't do anything for us, honestly. I don't even know that he really got any. I don't even remember him having any play time, and I think he retired. Yeah, so he actually did end up going to the Bills in 2019 for a short time, but then he retired, so he's not even in the league anymore. We didn't get anything out of him. The Bills didn't get anything out of him. So Isaac Asayada, I do have straight Fs for him, so really not even much to talk about there. Moving on to the next, who do we have? Davon Godchaux. I actually really like Davon Godchaux, and I did not want to get rid of him. And he's actually been playing really well for the Patriots this season. And for the grades, as you saw before, I had a B for the Dolphins, for his time with the Dolphins, because I actually thought he played really well for us, and I thought he could be a foundational piece to be in that rotation. And he's actually played just as good, if not better, since he's been away from us and since he's been with New England. So let's take a quick look at this and how he's doing. And obviously, too, he was what, a fifth round? Yeah, he was a fifth round pick. So good production for a fifth round pick. So he spent the first 4 years of his career in Miami, had 52 games played, 42 started, 2 passes defensed, a forced fumble, with 3 sacks, and, a bunch of tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 16 quarterback hits. When you look at the numbers in his 1 year, it is only 1 year, so obviously you'd have to figure out what the average is for all of that, so in his 4 years with Miami, he had on average less than 1 sack, less than 1 pass defense, less than 1 forced fumble a season, like a quarter of a forced fumble a season, right? He had about 25 solo tackles. He had 3 tackles for loss and 4 quarterback hits. So in his 1 year in New England, he's got, the 1 forced fumble, 1 sack. So yeah, like I said, he's doing at least as good, if not better, in New England. Roughly about the same, but obviously in New England, they have a damn good defense across the board. So he's on a team and in an organization that has a good infrastructure already built up and put in place. And so they're winning, and they look like, as of right now, look to win, or are looking to win the division and possibly even fight for that number 1 seed. So again, really solid player, especially coming from the 5th round. And I stick with my B grade for him with his time with the Dolphins and his A grade with his, since then, because he has been evolving a bit more since he's left. So let's move on. Let's head to the next one. Now we have Vincent Taylor. Again, and especially for a 6th round pick, I thought he was pretty solid too as a rotational guy. Let's take a quick look, though. Let's check his transactions. So it looks like his last place is with the Texans. He's currently on the Houston Texans IR as a defensive tackle. We cut him in 2019. Bills then took him for a little bit, in 2019 through 2020. Then he was on the Browns for a short bit in 2020, and then he got a 1 year, $1.5 million contract from the Texans this year. Ended up on injured reserve in September 15th. So I don't know if he's come off the injured reserve, because is that September 15th? Was that right? It depends. If that was right before the league started, the year started, I want to say the year started on the 14th, because I'm pretty sure our game was September 14th, the first one against the Patriots. So I'm pretty sure that was after the season started. So that means the injured reserve list he was put on most likely was the season injured reserve, which is only 3 weeks. So I'm not sure. I think he's come back, because it looks like he has played one game, but obviously not very much. So I mean, for Vincent Taylor, I had a C for his time with the Dolphins, because he was a late round pick, and I saw promise from him, and I thought he was going to be a good rotational piece. I have him as a C for after leaving the Dolphins, but there really is a good argument for dropping that at least to a D, because he hasn't really done anything. It's mostly just because the reason why, though, I think I'll leave him as a C is just because he was a late round pick. He was a 6th round pick, and he is still in the league. He is still a young player, and I do think he still has some potential and upside. So, I'll leave it as a C for now, but if he doesn't do anything over the next season or two to develop and improve and show that potential, then it'll likely get dropped even further. But I will leave it as a C for now. He had 2 years in Miami, 21 games played, 1 pass defensed, 2 sacks, 26 solo tackles, 19 assisted, 4 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think for his 2 years in Miami, for a 6th round pick and being just a kind of a rotational guy, I thought we actually got some decent stuff out of him and showed some potential. And then in Buffalo, the 1 year there, he had a pass defense, he had a tackle for loss. His short time in Cleveland, he had a fumble recovery, 2 tackles for loss and a quarterback hit. His short time in Houston and the little he's done, not really much there, right? So I'll leave it, like I said, I'll leave it there for now. If he doesn't start to show anything, then that grade will evolve, or I suppose devolve into something worse. But I think a C is pretty solid for his time with Miami, no matter what, because he was a late round pick and he did show some promise. All right, Isaiah Ford, he's an interesting cat. Obviously, he's still with the Dolphins, and he is contributing right now for the Dolphins, especially with all of our receivers being out. Now, as we know, he did, real quick, we'll jump down to the transactions, because we did trade him to the New England Patriots, and in 2020, we did get a 6th round pick for him, and then they cut him, and then he came right back to the Dolphins practice squad, and he's been here ever since. So let's take a look at, and of course, he was a 7th round pick, and I gave him a B across the board, obviously, because he did leave, but he didn't really leave, right? Because he's with the Dolphins. So, I think a B across the board is pretty solid, especially for 7th. I know he's kind of unreliable. He's just really generally maybe a 7th guy or a practice squatter. But again, it's 7th round player, and he actually has gotten decent production for being a 7th rounder and having to be thrust into the lineup in the ways that he has. So, and he just seems to stick. And, the talk is that he's a smart guy, and he knows the playbook really well, and so on and so forth. But so all of his actual playing time has come with the Dolphins, though, in 18, 19, 20, and 21. So he's had 29 games, 1 started, 94 targets, 62 receptions, 681 yards, 11 yards per reception. Not too bad there. 2 touchdowns. Obviously, that's come this year. Catch percentage, 66%. Not terrible, right? He's actually got some rushing statistics too. So, you know, not bad. Like I said, 7th round pick. I think a solid B grade is deserved there. So there you have it. That's the 20. And then, of course, the overall grades are D and C for, the time for these players. The 2017 class, what the Dolphins have gotten out of these players, it's a D. And for, what the Dolphins are currently getting or what these players have done since leaving the Dolphins is only at a C. So still not very good. But there you have it, and that's how I'm going to wrap it up. Before I get out of here, make sure you check out the Rave On Sports App, the new fan-driven sports app for all your sports, basketball, baseball, football, college, whatever you like, they got it. And they're looking to enhance your game day experience with live play-by-play coverage, live chats with other fans and content creators like myself. And they also like to harbor an environment where you can complain about the bad officiating. It's a fun time in there, so check it out. Look for that in the description box for the links. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. Of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at DillonTartaro. And with that, I am out.